I would say maybe it's like if you're comparing the US to Indonesia, maybe the size of like Delaware.
Yeah. Get out a map right now. Look at the size of Java. Don't do this if you're driving. But get out a map. Look at the size of the island of Java. And then at the very tiny corner of it, you might see the island of Bali.
Bali.
This is Worldschooling Q&A. I'm Astrid, creator of The Wandering Daughter. As a traveling family, we've spent 4 years traveling full-time to over 18 countries and 6 continents. Wherever we go, we try to learn as much as we can about the countries and cultures we visit. While we didn't coin the term, we like to call this worldschooling, using the world as our classroom. Each week, my husband Clint and I will answer one question about worldschooling and share our experiences of traveling the world with our kids. Ready to get started? Great! Let's dive in.
This week, we're answering the question, how do I world school in Bali?
So, first disclaimer. Yes, Bali is a part of Indonesia.
Yeah.
In case you did not know that, Bali
Bali is part of Indonesia.
It is not its own country. It is part of Indonesia. All right, now that we got that out of the way.
Well, so we decided to break this up into two because Bali is so popular for world schoolers, and I think it would have been hard to like condense it into the Indonesia episode just because there's so much that we can cover just specifically to Bali.
Yeah, I think it represents the amount of tourism is proportionate. Bali kind of does stand on its own from that standpoint. I'm kind of joking at the beginning, but a lot of people actually do think of Bali as its own country. So I think,
or they forget that it's part of Indonesia.
Yeah, they forget that it's part of Indonesia. But there's also like religion-wise, culture-wise, it does stand separate from the rest of Indonesia. So I think it's worth doing its own show.
Yeah.
Speaking of logistics and overview, what are some things that people should know about Bali?
Yeah, so there's like one major airport in Bali, and so the island is like really, really tiny, right?
Tiny. You can't even see it on a map.
No, I mean you can.
It's barely visible.
But it's like tiny compared to like the whole, I would say maybe it's like, if you're comparing the US to Indonesia, maybe the size of like Delaware.
Yeah. Get out a map right now. Look at the size of Java. Don't do this if you're driving. But get out a map and look at the size of the island of Java. And then at the very tiny corner of it, you might see the island of Bali.
So anyway, so there's one airport and it's located in Denpasar in the southern part of the island. And then, and the services like, it's an international airport. So you can get direct flights from the United States, from, countries in Europe, from Australia. So it's easy to get to.
When you say direct flight, it's not really direct. It usually goes through Singapore or Japan first and then flies into Pasar.
No, I think there is a direct flight. Yeah.
Oh, I stand corrected.
Yeah.
Again, I think the other thing, there is a smaller airport that they have since built in North Bali. So like Astrid said, Denpasar is in the southern part of Bali. The northern airport, I believe, is closer to Amed.
Yeah.
And
interesting to see how that changes the dynamic of the island.
I guess the reason why it's worth mentioning that is because if you think if you are going to go to Bali and spend your time in Amed, and we'll talk about Amed, why that might be the case, it might behoove you to fly into that airport. Yeah. The only reason why is one logistic. We mentioned this in Jakarta also, but one logistic you have to be really, I think, cognizant of about Bali is traffic is really, 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 really bad.
Yeah.
And from the airport Denpasar to say Canggu, which is a surfing town.
Yeah.
It's only maybe 20 kilometers.
Yep.
Really short distance. But it can take multiple hours to get from the airport to Canggu, depending on the time of day.
And the size of the vehicle. So like if you have a scooter, if you're just driving a scooter from Canggu to like Kuta area, maybe is like 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. But if you have a car, it could take well over an hour because the streets are narrow. And then you've got so many cars and scooters in there. And you'll find, because it's such a popular tourist destination, the majority of like the population live, or there's like a lot more, it's more dense, closer you are to the airport and like the southern like surfer area. It's like Canggu, Legian, that. And then as you move further away from the airport and further away from like the surfer part, like it becomes less dense, except for Ubud, which is like in the center of the island. And that is also because it's very popular for, you know, yoga retreats and whatnot. And Julia Roberts single-handedly made Bali.
Or Ubud specifically.
Actually, not Julia Roberts. Well, her and Elizabeth Gilbert. Yeah. But, you know, Ubud is also a very like congested area too.
Yeah. And if you are traveling to Ubud, which a lot of people do, they'll come into Bali, they'll spend some time in the kind of the surf beach area, because that's also where all the beach resorts are and things like that. And the party area is in the southern part in the Kuta region or Canggu. And then they'll want to do some sort of time in Ubud. The traveling times between those two, if you're taking a van, it can be really long.
It could be a couple hours.
If you're taking a car, it might be a little bit less. But if you can and jump on the backs of scooters or something like that, it would be a lot faster. But I know with family, that's going to be.
Yeah, it doesn't look like a long distance on the map, but it will. With traffic, it takes a really long time.
I mean, most of Bali are small villages that have now had to accommodate a ton of people. Mm-hmm. And so the roads and the villages are just not made to handle that kind of traffic.
Yeah. So it is a major issue in Bali, just over tourism and trying to figure out like how to accommodate all those tourists and also just like what impact that has on the culture. And we can kind of talk about it more later, but I do want to talk about if you're visiting Bali, and this is me getting on my like soapbox, it's important to be respectful of the culture and not to just like treat it as like, you know, your playground to do whatever you want because that's okay in your home country.
Yeah. People treat, if you're familiar with the United States, if you're from the United States like we are, it's often treated similar to, say, like Cancun or Cabo or
just like a party,
Miami,
a party town, a party place,
or Vegas. Like there's a lot of uncouth behavior that happens there. Not necessarily from Americans or Europeans, also from like Australia. It's distance wise, it's similar to the United States and Mexico for Australia. So because the beaches are gorgeous and it can be a big party town and it's a surfing area, like there can just be a lot of bad behavior.
Yeah. And like I watched videos of like tourists renting scooters and then just like, you know, riding it into a pool in their villa, and they're like, oh, you know, so like obviously a world schooling family is not going to be that like crazy, but you know, just before you go, learn a little bit about like Balinese culture and Balinese etiquette, and then just try and be like respectful of that.
Yeah. Speaking of scooters, I think scooters are a great way to get around. If you are a family that's comfortable riding scooters, we've mentioned this in the past episode, you should have your motorcycle endorsement though. Yeah. Bali has started cracking down on renting to people that do not have motorcycle endorsement. So you still can. I mean, the thing is, when Bali cracks down on things, there's still a million ways to get around it. But you should have your motorcycle endorsement. It's also safer for everyone. there are a lot of people riding scooters. Some of them are reckless. And so I think it behooves you to be very cautious on scooters. Having said that, we love it. It's our primary transportation. Anytime we go to Bali, we absolutely love it. We go city to city with it.
I don't know.
Well, from Kuta, we went from...
Well, we did, yes. I would not ride a scooter from like Canggu to Ubud. But...
No. We know friends that have done that, but we personally haven't done that.
Yeah.
But anyways, it's a great way.
Yeah.
I think another like logistic thing I'd like to point out, unlike the rest of Indonesia that's Muslim, they are Hindu, not Buddhist. There's an often confused idea that Bali is Buddhist. They're not. They're Hindu. And it's also an interesting flavor of Hinduism, too, because it has a lot of an animist history as well.
Yep.
So that translates into a really unique experience, actually, in Bali, between the temples and the art and the dance and stuff. It is this very like animist past with a very heavy Hindu influence as well.
Yeah. And I can speak to it a little bit more in terms of like when we talk about the key highlights. But I do want to say, like, when you mentioned rice farming, like one of the things that I love about Bali and it's like starting to disappear, but you can still find pockets of it, is just the amount of rice fields that are there. And like some of my favorite memories are riding a scooter past like rice fields or through rice fields. And there are still places in Bali where you can like do that and just experience the part that draws people into that island.
And I mean, depending how you feel about this, either like disgusted or romantic about this, you can find villas in the middle of rice fields too, if you want to turn that into your lodging.
Yeah.
It is. We've seen them and they're incredible.
Oh my gosh.
Incredible.
Actually, I want to mention, like, in my solo travel days, I did a month-long trip through Indonesia by myself, and I met this couple and their friend who was traveling, and they were like, "Oh, when you come to Ubud, come and stay with us. We rented a villa." And so I contacted them, and they rented a villa like right in the middle of the rice paddies, and my room that they let me stay in was like the very top room. And so I wake up in the morning and all I see around me is just like rice paddies, and it was so gorgeous. And like you can still find that now. I think it's more expensive because it's like prime real estate. But if you want to splurge and do that, you're welcome to.
One other thing I wanted to mention about logistics is that around food, and we talk about this more in food, but Bali's probably, well, you can get it in pockets in the rest of Indonesia, but really Bali is going to be the only place you get pork, and that's largely because it's not Muslim there.
Yeah.
It's also the only place I would say so far in Indonesia, other than like very metropolitan areas, that is going to be vegetarian or vegan friendly. And that's just because of the influence of tourism. There are a lot more vegan types of restaurants there. It's very pescatarian friendly because it is a small island. There's a lot of fish and seafood eaten.
Yeah.
So I think that's helpful. So that's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah. And the prices, though, will be more expensive in Bali than in the rest of Indonesia. So like if you are traveling through Indonesia and then you are also going to be traveling in Bali, like just budget accordingly, like, whatever you spend in the rest of Indonesia, double or triple that for Bali. Expect to double or triple that.
It's still, on the most part, going to be less than I think most places in the United States.
Yeah.
But it is going. Canggu, for example, we just spent some time in Canggu recently, and it is a surfing town, like we mentioned. It's a digital nomad hub as well. And so a cup of coffee, for example, at a nice coffee shop in the United States could cost $6 or $7, depending. I can't believe I'm saying that, but yeah, it can cost $6 or $7, depending. In like the rest of Indonesia, probably a couple bucks at the most.
Yeah.
US, if not less. In Bali, it's going to be like $4 probably. So it gives you an idea of kind of like it's somewhere in the middle between like US and Indonesia.
So it's still affordable, but if you're traveling on a budget, keep that in mind.
We didn't mention this in the Indonesia episode. I guess we should have. But like one thing that world schoolers would be drawn to of Indonesia in general is the affordability of it, especially compared to Western countries. There's a inside joke with some other friends of ours of whenever we're like buying something somewhere else, like in the United States, something, it's not Jogja prices. And that's because like Jakarta that we talked about in our last episode, incredibly affordable for world schooling families. Bali is not going to be that as much. You can find pockets of it, especially if you're staying, say, on Amed or something like that.
Yeah.
You can find more affordable options. Lodging in places like Canggu or Ubud are going to be expensive. That's just the nature of it at this point.
Excuse me.
And then also, I think the overcrowdedness of Bali now, I think, tends to turn off a lot of world schooling families. So it's just something like if you think you're going to come to Bali and get the Eat, Pray, Love experience, I think
probably won't.
Or if you do, it's not going to be in the mainstream areas. You're going to have to venture out and seek that somewhere else.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean Bali's bad. Like, I think, and when we start talking about these key highlights, I think the thing to understand is like, we really do love Bali. There are layers to it that are incredible. We've spent a lot of time in Bali, like months in Bali. We've gotten to know people that live there and work there. And there's a lot to love about Bali.
Yeah.
There's a lot to acknowledge about the challenges it has, though.
Yeah.
And
if you, like if you are committed to traveling responsibly, like going to Bali and acknowledging some of those things is like the responsible way to go versus just like ignoring it and only seeing it as this like, oh, it's such a beautiful place and like so full of spirituality and all that stuff without really diving deeper and understanding like what is it that makes that island special and what are the challenges that it faces.
And I would say like we love Indonesia. Obviously, it's such a core part of who we are as a traveling family.
Yeah.
And I think so many world schooling families and digital nomads go to Bali. I think the one thing I would emphasize is that like if you fall in love with Bali, that's great, but don't use it. Like fall in love with Bali and want to make it better.
Right.
And not through like volunteerism and not through like superficial ways or externally driven ways to make it better. Like really find out the people that are working and living in Bali and what's needed from that standpoint. And there are ways as a Western society we can make things better, even from afar. And we might talk about some of that stuff as well.
Yeah. All right. So now let's go into the highlights because there's a lot that we can cover.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the things, we'll just start the north. For me, we'll start in Amed. Okay. Amed is a small village that's kind of spread out over several kilometers along the coast. And it is on the northern side of Bali. It is traditionally a lot of French residents there because there's a lot of diving that happens there. That's where you can get your PADI certification.
Right.
A lot of gorgeous scuba diving, a lot of gorgeous snorkeling. It is an incredible place to go for water activities.
Right.
Black sand beaches, not all everywhere, but some places have black sand beaches because of the volcanic activity.
Yeah.
It is more rural though. So it's small town that we mentioned in the Indonesia episode. It is very cash based. Right. So just like Indonesia, Bali is very cash based. And when you get into some of these smaller villages, you're not going to have a lot of amenities. There's going to be one or two ATMs in the entire town, if that sometimes.
Right.
There's not going to be public transportation. So you're going to either have to get good at hitchhiking or walking or hiring a driver or riding scooters, honestly.
Yeah.
So There's not going to be large grocery stores. You're only going to have small markets, convenience stores, that kind of stuff. So that's what Amed is. But it's also super charming. It's great for fishing. It's great for just like we said, scuba and snorkeling. It's a super small town.
There's I do remember, like, near the hotel or the villas that we were staying at, or maybe it's further up, there's a Japanese shipwreck, like a Japanese, a shipwreck of a Japanese ship.
Yeah. Exactly.
Anyway, now like there's coral that's kind of growing around it, and that was a fun place to snorkel around.
It's incredible too. I just want to mention this because there's a side that people will scuba on, and then there's a side that people will snorkel on. Because when you start around the shipwreck snorkeling, like the way it's tilted, it's right on the edge of kind of a drop off point. So it's like kind of shallower on one end. And then as you go around the edge of where the shipwreck is, it drops off and it just becomes this really deep area. And that's where there's a lot of scuba happening too. It's just incredible. It's really incredible.
Yeah.
And it's the location too is like there's a restaurant there. So you kind of pay an entrance fee and you get like a drink and some food. You can order some food and stuff. So it's a nice place. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to move to Ubud?
Yeah, let's go. We'll go to Central now. So we're starting north. We'll go to Central.
Yeah.
And Ubud.
So Ubud, I like the city a lot because there's so much opportunities to learn about Balinese culture there. And maybe I can go into like a little bit of a deep dive into like the Hinduism that you can find in Bali. So the Hinduism is different from India. I mean, it did come to Indonesia via like, Indian trade and all that stuff. And in Bali, there's this philosophy called Tri Hita Karana. So it's like a three-part philosophy of like personal connection with nature, connection with others, and then also connection with the divine. And so there's like, I'm geeking out about this because this is so fascinating to me, but there is this like interplay of all three of those present in the things that Balinese people do on a daily basis. So you have like, every day Balinese will have offerings, and you'll see them in like up in there'll be like some a little offering stand up on the side of a building. But then there's also like little mini temples or shrines, not temples, but like little mini shrines that people will put their offerings to there. And then there's also offerings on the ground, and they're just these like square baskets made out of, I think, palm fronds or something like that. And inside are like flowers, sometimes candy, sometimes rice. And these are offerings to the gods. And because there's like there's multiple levels. So you've got like the lower gods and the middle gods and the higher gods, which is why they have them at the different levels. So then there's like those offerings, and there's offerings for the temples, which are like the things that the women will carry on their heads that are multi-tiered. So you have opportunities to learn about that. And then like there's just so many temples. In fact, I think that there are more temples than there are households in Bali, because every household has a temple, and then there are also just like public temples. So that there's so many temples there. And then the other aspect about Hinduism that I love is even the rice farming is connected to the temple. Like the irrigation for the rice farming, the water comes from like these water temples that are up in the top of like mountains, and then it just uses like gravity to kind of flow through the rest of the island. And it's still like, that's been around for like hundreds of years. They call it the subak system. It's been around for a long time, and it's still present now, even with like, modernity and tourism and things like that. That's still such a core part of Balinese culture.
And you can see that there's some great places just outside of Amed. You can kind of see that too, with the mountains and the temples and the rice fields underneath stuff. Yeah. And Ubud as well.
Yeah. But if you're visiting Ubud, there's a Balinese, like there's a family that sort of opened their home up to like for visitors to learn about that. It's called Taman, and they offer like, you know, visitors a chance to like see the farming, learn about that stuff, and like even try farming themselves.
That's a good point. Ubud there's a number of these like family villas or compounds that you can visit and really learn about what family life is. And we highly encourage that because you get to see kind of traditional ways that families have lived, and it also supports local families. Like it's not like sponsored by a corporation or something. Like these are families giving up their homes to bring people in to learn about it. And I think maybe a lot of times in kind of Western mentality, we think maybe that's voyeurism or something, but like, but
that's true.
They're trying to just share a part of their culture that's actually authentic. And it's not the thing in Bali that you're going to get a lot of is you're going to get Western perspective view on Balinese culture.
The tourist gaze.
Yeah. And like these home visits, I think are a way of getting more of a local version of that story.
Yeah. So in fact, maybe I can take a moment to like highlight like a specific company that we like. Yeah. So the last time we were in Indonesia, we did do we visited a Balinese home, and the company that we love, and we just the owner is just a great guy in general, but it's called Bali Adventures, and they will, you know, they've got like a Ubud highlights, and I think if you ask the guide, you can ask them to visit like the Balinese, a traditional Balinese home to like include that into the trip because it's definitely worth a visit.
Yeah. The other thing I want to say about Ubud and actually all of Bali, but Ubud specifically, is there's one lodging opportunity that I think is really nice, and that's called Homestays. And it's usually because there's a lot of these compounds that exist, they will have either kind of transformed it into almost like a little hotel or like a bed and breakfast kind of feel, but you're literally staying in someone's home compound. And it's a great way because it's family owned.
Yeah.
You get to know the hosts. I mean, you can talk to the hosts. Most of the time they're English speaking because they are catering to tourism. So they are English speaking, but like they'll participate in ceremonies. There are a lot of ceremonies in Bali in general.
Yep.
A lot of them are in Ubud. You can see a lot of these ceremonies, the funeral ceremonies. There's like solstice ceremonies, the moon ceremonies. There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
And so you can kind of get to know. And then if you're staying in a homestay, and most of the homestays have kitchens, and so they're like apartments, but you can like get to know a little bit more about the local culture.
Yeah. The one that we stayed at and that we like was is called Suparsa's Homestay.
Yeah, and it was great. And it was a little bit on the outside of Ubud, so away from kind of the center.
It was like on a side street, I think.
Oh, that one. What was the other homestay we stayed at when we stayed a month?
Oh, that was an Airbnb.
Yeah, but it was still a homestay. It was listed it on Airbnb.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was called.
But anyways,
I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah. So the reason I mentioned that was because it was on the outskirts of Ubud.
Yeah.
So it was about a couple kilometers outside of Ubud. So you're like driving through rice, like on roads that go through rice paddies, and incredibly beautiful. That's where we fell in love with riding scooters. I mean, it's just like riding through that to get back home for the evening is incredible. And you're driving like through these little towns that have or have temples and things like that. It's incredible. The bad. Do you want to talk a little bit about the bad side of Ubud?
So one of the things is that it is very like populated, or there's a lot of people there, and so like it can get very crowded, especially if you're going along the main road.
Foreigners specifically.
Yes. Yeah. Foreigners. And I think the one thing that kind of makes me sad is because there's so many foreigners, it's sort of like pushed out local, like Balinese, the pricing and stuff has kind of pushed out locals and made it very expensive for people. And this is like it, not just Ubud, but like Kuta is like that too. And like many of the popular cities. And so I think it's harder for a Balinese person to live in those cities without having to have multiple jobs or multiple side hustles. Like Balinese people have to work really hard to be able to afford to live in their homes, essentially.
Yeah. And there's a lot of Indonesians that are from Java, for example, who've studied in Java and now gone to Bali and started businesses or working in the tourism industry or something like that too. So it doesn't just attract foreigners, it attracts people from other parts of Indonesia because of the culture and because of the beauty and stuff. So it's interesting that way, but it is really busy. Traffic can be really bad. There's a lot of scooters on the road. I mean, trash at the beaches. There's no beaches in Ubud, but like just trash in the rivers and stuff like that. Like it's not nearly as bad as the Philippines when we get to the Philippines in some cases, but like it's one of those things that, again, opportunities to kind of be a more responsible citizen and try to help out in those areas as well.
Yeah.
But
and the yoga retreats.
Do you want to talk about that, or should we just kind of touch briefly? Let's just say there's a term called spiritual bypassing, and that I think Ubud is probably one of the main things for that. And it's taking aspects of spirituality. I think yoga to me is part of that, from Hinduism and stuff, and just like highlighting that and ignoring the rest. And Western culture has had a large influence on smoothie shops and yoga retreats and yoga studios. And in Bali, that doesn't necessarily, maybe existed a little bit there, but like now just exists purely to cater towards foreigners. Feel what you may about it. We don't like it. It competes against local economies. It highlights aspects of Hinduism that is very superficial feeling. Yeah. I don't know anything else you want to say about that.
Yeah, I think it's what I wanted to say about like the yoga retreats is that it's just because of Bali's kind of like idyllic natural setting, people tend to choose that as a place for their like yoga retreats. And then now people associate like, oh, that's the place to be, without really thinking about like, was that really part of Balinese culture to begin with? Or is that something that's been imposed by like our Western exoticism of Hinduism, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, again, I'll get off my soapbox. We can talk more about like other parts of Bali.
I think one other point I just want to make about that is that like, I don't want to encourage not visiting Bali, because the thing is, we've gotten to know a lot of people in Bali.
Yeah.
And their economy thrives on tourism. It's built almost entirely on tourism, for better or for worse.
Yep.
And so when the pandemic hit, for example, or one of the major volcanoes there erupted years ago, it decimated the local economy. And to the point where people have a hard time feeding their families because there's not enough money coming in.
Yeah.
So I don't want to discourage tourism there. I want to encourage tourism. I want to encourage people to go there and experience it. But let's get away from the kind of gross types of tourism and really get to know kind of the authentic side of Bali and support local economies. Sorry, that's our soapbox, but it really, like, when you start, I mean, that's part of Worldschooling. You start getting to know people that live in these areas and the effects travel has on that, for better or for worse. I just want to be a better citizen, global citizen.
Yeah.
So We talked a bit about surfing, Kuta and Canggu.
Yeah,
I don't know if there's more you want to say about that.
The southern part of Bali is where like a lot of people will go for the beaches. So like besides Kuta and Canggu, there's like Jimbaran is a popular one, a beach spot, and so is Sanur. So there's actually a great like coral research center near Sanur that if you're interested in learning about like, you know, coral reefs and conservation and stuff, I think you should go visit that place. They do have a fun like coral themed escape room game that you can do, which the kids and I did, and we learned a little bit about like reef stuff. But yeah, so that's another place. Oh, and actually another location in the southern and is a kickoff point to go to Lombok is Padang Bai.
Yeah.
That one, there's some snorkeling you can do around that area as well. And there is like I saw this and we didn't visit it, but there's a project, like a coral restoration project near there where they're like trying to regrow the coral that's been like damaged. And part of that is because Padang Bai is like where the ferries will go to Lombok, and like the fast boats leave from there. And so there's always ships and oil tankers and things going back and forth. And those ships, like, it affects the coral that's in that
It's
area.
a heavy oil tanking.
Yeah.
Indonesia in general is a major oil producing country. So there's lots of oil tankers that go out of there. Yeah. I think the only other thing I want to mention about Kuta and Canggu, I think it's worth visiting. There's interesting aspects about it. If you want to learn to surf, it's a great place to learn to surf. There's lots of opportunity to learn to surf. Some gorgeous beaches. Canggu, like Ubud, lots of coffee shops, lots of places that cater to kind of Western sensibilities. So I do like that on occasion. I do like the amount of coffee shops. That's one of my favorite things to do here in the United States. So it's nice to do that there. They're just busy. Canggu and Kuta are both really busy.
Yeah.
Kuta especially has a lot of partying at night. A lot of partying, some hardcore partying at night. So that can be like loud music and things like that.
They have some clubs. They have clubs.
Yeah, lots of clubs there. I think on our list we've already talked about Hinduism and temples, culture and art. I think, is there any more about culture and art? I think
so. Bali in general has always had like a strong like artistic culture to it, and so I think I remember as a kid, like we used to visit Bali, and then my parents would buy like paintings from stuff. So like because there are all these temples, and I think I learned somewhere that the temples are made from stones they're kind of brittle, and so they always have to be, or the temples and the shrines, they have to be like, maybe it was the shrines. Sorry, I think the shrines are the ones that are made out of like kind of brittle type of rock, and so they always have to be like restored or retouched, and so that like that craft of carving is just a part of the culture. And you'll find like wood masks, and you'll find like wood sculptures, and there's like gamelan music there too, but it's different from Javanese. There's like dancing, but it's different from Javanese dancing, and shadow puppets as well. So like it's worth Ubud, you'll be able to find those things. Like it's worth spending some time kind of like experiencing that just to see some of the temples that we enjoyed was like Pura Lempuyang is kind of the like, if you ever see on Instagram with like the two temple gates and then this thing that looks like a in front of it, it's actually just somebody holding a mirror under the camera. But like we visited there.
Gates of the
Gates of Heaven. Yes. We visited there, and we were going to wait in line for the pictures, and then we decided, no, we don't want to. But the kids and I, we walked up to where like the temple prayer area was, and they were like helpful or allowed us to like join in on the like prayer there. So we made an offering and all that stuff. So that was kind of cool. That was a good like cultural experience that we had.
Yeah. I really enjoyed the dance.
And there's a dance. What was it? There's a temple. Yes, is on the other side, like on the western side of the island. And it is a little bit of a touristy experience, but you get to watch like a dance performance there. And there's a specific type of dance called the Kecak dance, where it's all these men surrounding, like, you know, they're in a circle and they're doing these like percussive sounds and movements and stuff. It's sort of, they're actually supposed to be like monkeys. They're kind of representing monkeys, and then at some point they get into a trance and they start like doing these like trance-like things and trying to stab themselves and stuff. It was very cool to watch.
Is that the one they do also at dusk? So it's like there's
because there's fire. There's a fire. They're surrounding a fire, and then it's so cool.
Another temple I just want to mention is like
a lot.
That is amazing because it's like when the tide comes in, that's the one where the tide. When the tide comes in, it gets separated from the mainland. So when the tide's out, you can actually walk over to the temple. It's absolutely beautiful to see. But
so there's so much that like world schoolers can enjoy about Bali and like learn. And I think that is what draws people to the island. And if you are willing to spend some time to like dive deeper into the culture, you will have, you know, just such an enriching experience when you go there.
Yeah, we have contacts there. We love to promote like the local businesses that we know. And again, it's one of those places where I'd love to just like increase tourism there, responsible tourism. So that's a great one, like to talk to us like during office hours to kind of get to know some things you could do there.
There's an organization actually, I think it's international, but there's an organization called Trash Hero that has like programs like trash collecting programs that you can do, which we did the last time we were there. And you just, you know, you can go and you participate in like a beach cleanup for, you know, an hour or two. And then
that's the type of volunteerism I can get behind. Because it's minimal but good impact, and that's not affecting local economies.
And I think that there is also like something that Bali is doing when we were there was like they were eliminating plastic bags, and then they also had a rule of no more plastic straws as well. So when you're at a restaurant, you'll either get like a bamboo straw or they'll give you like one of those metal straws. And then there was at the time, I'm not sure if it's still functioning or if it's morphed into something else. There's like water bottle refill stations that you can go so that you don't have to like buy bottled water.
Yeah, because it's not potable water there from the faucets and stuff. So these portable drinking refill stations are nice because then you're getting filtered water that you can refill with. So it's hopefully getting better. But yeah. All right.
Anything else to add?
I don't think so. No, other than I want to go back.
Me too. You can tell that we love Bali.
Well, that's all for today. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Worldschooling Q&A with Astrid and Clint. Be sure to check out the show notes for any links we mentioned in the episode, and visit my website, thewanderingdaughter.com, to dive deeper into world schooling and family travel.
If you like what you hear, please consider supporting The Wandering Daughter on Patreon. It really helps us out and keeps the show going. You'll also get exclusive perks like episode transcripts, additional resources, access to office hours with us, and more. You can find us on Spotify or the podcast app of your choice. If you're listening to this on Spotify, you can tap the bell icon to get notified when new episodes come out. And if you like this episode, please give us a 5-star review. It really helps new people find our show.
If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe and tap the bell icon to get notified of new episodes. You can follow me on Instagram @WanderDaughter or follow The Wandering Daughter on Facebook. Links to these are also in the show notes. If you have any world schooling questions you'd like us to answer for future episodes, feel free to throw them in the comments or send us a message at thewanderingdaughter.com/podcast. Until next time, happy travels!
Bye!